Hello and welcome to my channel NB Soundhopper UK, and the subject of this video will be 1001 albums to hear before you die, 5 replacements. Alan from the statictraveller channel offered up a challenge to find 5 alternative choices to include in the book 1001 albums you must hear before you die. This is too much for me to resist, so big thanks to Alan. Although I'm not a member of the vinyl community, Alan did frame the challenge to potentially include CDs, hence I feel justified in joining in the fun. I don't own the book, but having done some research, it goes up as far as 2005, I believe, and the website 1001 albums you must hear before you die.net extends the range up to 2018. Therefore, the rationale I'm using for this video is A, to focus on the period 2006 to 2018, owing to the disproportionately small number of albums listed for that period. B, to identify which albums I feel should be taken out of the existing 1001 albums to accommodate my choices, along with my reasons for doing so. And C, all the albums mentioned must be ones that I own. Hopefully that makes sense, so here we go. My first choice is The Drift by Scott Walker from 2006. Now, Scott Walker has a couple of albums in the 1001 already, Scott 2 and Scott 4 from the late 60s, which are mostly Baroque pop albums that came after the hits he had with the Walker Brothers, such as Make It Easy on Yourself and The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore. The Drift probably best falls into the category of avant-garde. It wasn't his first such album. There are a couple he released in the 1990s. But the complexity of the arrangements, the tension created by contrasting quiet and loud sections within tracks, and the darkness of the subject matter all make The Drift a bit unsettling yet compelling also. Reflection on the contrast between his earliest material and this becomes an area of fascination as well. The Drift is far from easy listening, but as I said, compelling. The album I'm replacing is Fragile by Yes from 1971. The Yes album was released in the same year and is also in the book. Fragile has 3 great tracks, but arguably a sizable chunk of filler as well. Second is Untrue by Burial from 2007. Frankly, I was amazed not to see this in the online update. By 2018, I think the album was recognised as something of an early 21st century landmark, and the omission of Untrue seems like a significant oversight. The music on Untrue is an excellent representation of the dubstep genre. Without trying to give a definitive explanation of what dubstep is, from a high level, it mixes drum and bass, garage, ambient, and dub. Vocal samples from garage tracks are included, which, because of the sparse atmosphere generated from the production, acquire a ghostly quality. For me, the album is a sort of soundtrack for walking home through deserted town or city streets in the early hours of the morning, whilst having a fuzzy head from tiredness or too much to drink, with fragments of sound heard earlier whirling around your brain. Untrue is a modern classic. The album getting the heave-ho is Volume 4 by Black Sabbath from 1972. Black Sabbath's debut and Paranoid are in the 1001 albums, and I don't think there's anything on Volume 4 that dramatically builds on their first 2 albums. Third is Burn by Sons of Kemet, released in 2013. I wouldn't be the first to mention that jazz is underrepresented in the 1001 albums. The 21st century has seen quite a revival for jazz, both in its more traditional form and in hybrid mixes with other genres. Sons of Kemet are Shabaka Hutchings, who takes the lead on saxophone and clarinet, Orrin Marshall playing tuba, which provides the bass parts, and then there are 2 drummers, Seb Rochford and Tom Skinner. Dave Okuma supplies guitar on a couple of tracks, which works especially well on Going Home. On tracks like All Will Surely Burn, Beware, and The It Is, what you end up with is a lively combination of jazz and world music. And on tracks such as The Book of Disquiet and Song for Galliona, things get more reflective. A striking album with a striking cover. Burn replaces Machine Head by Deep Purple from 1972, the year in which they released their double live album Made in Japan, also in the book. So, with many of the tracks on Machine Head being on Made in Japan, the duplication of these tracks in the book seems superfluous. Fourth is Atomos by A Winged Victory for the Sullen from 2014. The line between ambient music and modern classical has become increasingly blurred as this century has progressed, and it's something that deserves to be considered in the 1001 albums you must hear before you die. A Winged Victory for the Sullen is an American duo consisting of pianist Dustin O'Halloran and pianist/guitarist Adam Wiltsey, the latter of whom was one half of ambient post-rock duo Stars of the Lid. As with all of their work, the guitar, via the use of various effects, is barely recognisable as being one. Instead, it's more like a sonic wash complementing other instruments. What stands out on this album is the extensive use of violin, viola, and cello on the 11 thematically linked tracks. It's a mesmerising and relaxing album where visions of old European streets in black and white films are evoked. To make way for Atomos is Station to Station by David Bowie from 1976. Whilst the title track and Golden Years have lots going for them, it's not an album I would highly recommend. Bowie's vocals are often a bit too overwrought, and on the whole, it's far from his most creative work. Fifth and finally is Retribution by Tanya Tagaq from 2016. Throughout the book, there are plenty of examples of albums that comment about the world at the time they were recorded. Retribution is an album of that ilk, and the environment is its focus. For someone like Tanya Tagaq, it's an authentic concern. As a northern Canadian Inuk person, there can be little doubt regarding the visible signs of global warming and its effects on the surroundings of the Inuit peoples. The album is a collision of modern sounds and traditional ones, such as tribal chants and Inuit throat singing. Much of the album is like a summoning for the earth to exact its retribution on a humanity which refuses to heed its warnings. The title track and Cold are particularly ominous in that respect. The final track is a cover of Nirvana's Rape Me, personally significant for Tagaq and symbolically for the planet. An absorbing listen. Retribution in, Bossa Nova by Pixies from 1990 out. Their first two albums are in the book and deserve to be. Bossa Nova is the band at the height of its popularity, but in this case, what goes with that is an album that sounds like fragments of ideas that haven't been fully worked out and appear to have been hurriedly recorded. A strike while the iron is hot sort of album that doesn't quite work. Ultimately, an interesting challenge set by Alan from the Static Traveller channel. My thoughts on the book are mixed. For baby boomers and Gen Xers, it's a good opportunity for a nostalgic look at the past and probably many albums already owned, but on the flip side, it's not a very useful guide to anything from the 1990s onwards, as the compilers struggle to explore newer genres with any real conviction. For millennials and Gen Zers, it's a great way to discover stuff they may not have heard of before the 1990s, but again, on the flip side, the book doesn't do justice to the music that they've grown up with. In the video description, I've added links to tracks from the 5 albums I've talked about, and at the end of the video, options for how to interact with my channel are displayed. In the meantime, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching.